Keedy closed his eyes. "Wake me up when we get there." Superintendent Chatfield had reacted to the situation with speed and efficiency. He arrived at the scene to find dozens of uniformed policemen watching a small terraced house from a safe distance. Inside, he was told, were the 3 suspects. One of them at least possessed a gun and had already shown his readiness to use it. Chatfield had no wish to see another policeman killed, so he proceeded with caution. Men had already been deployed to the rear of the house, in case the burglars tried to escape that way. He checked on them to see if they had spotted any movement inside or outside the house. Chatfield then returned to the front of the house with his megaphone. Before he could use it to begin negotiations, however, he saw a police car turn into the street and come to a halt. Marmion and Keedy jumped out and ran across to him. Chatfield was glad to see the detectives. "3 men are holed up in that house," he told them, pointing a finger. "I'm hoping to persuade them to come out, but they may have other ideas." "Blimey!" exclaimed Keedy, looking around. "You've got plenty of manpower here, sir. It's like the siege of Sydney Street." Chatfield shook his head. "It's not a bit like it, Sergeant," he argued. "In that instance, there was a huge police presence bolstered by officers from the City of London Police and sharpshooters from the Scots Guards. Also, it was 3 years before the war broke out, so it was easy to rustle up reinforcements. We can't do that now." "There's another difference, sir," observed Marmion, looking up and down the dark street. "Most people are still asleep in their beds. The sound of gunfire in Sydney Street brought everyone out of their houses. The police had a job to control the crowds." "I'm hoping for a peaceful solution," said Chatfield. "I'll try to lure them out." "Do we have any idea who they are?" "We have a name for one of them. According to a next-door neighbour, he's Dan Haskins. He rented a house a month or so ago and apparently gets on well with everyone. He told the neighbour that he works as a night watchman in a factory in Ben Jonson Road." Chatfield rolled his eyes. "In fact, as we've now discovered, he's a burglar, and so are his associates." "That's the other difference between this situation and the one in Sydney Street," he went on. "In the latter case, we were up against a murderous gang of Latvians. At least the burglars inside this house will understand English." He raised the megaphone. "It's time to have a conversation with them." When Alice Marmion came downstairs, wiping the sleep from her eyes, her mother had been up for some time. Ellen had lit a fire in the living room and was now making tea in the kitchen. She was pleased that her daughter had spent the night at home for a change. Ordinarily, Alice lived in a rented room several miles away. "I'm sorry if the noise woke you up," said Ellen. "What noise?" "The telephone rang." "I didn't hear it." "You must have heard the police car screeching to a halt outside. That's what brought me awake. I expect there's been an emergency of some sort. Your father had to charge off somewhere." "I was fast asleep, Mummy. Never heard a thing. I know that being in the women's police force can't compare with what Daddy and Joe do, but spending all day on your feet is very tiring. I was really exhausted last night." "You'll have to get used to this, Alice." "Used to what?" "Waking up and finding there's nobody in the bed beside you." "I see what you mean.
When you and Joe are married, he's going to be hauled out in the middle of the night from time to time."
Alice sighed. "I suppose that it's the price I pay for having a husband who is a Scotland Yard detective. Ah, well," she added with a smile, "there are compensations." Crouching in the doorway of a nearby house, megaphone in hand, Chatfield tried to persuade the burglars that there was no escape. Armed policemen stood ready to storm the building. But the superintendent hoped that it would not be necessary. He had persuaded criminals once before that they had no option but surrender. This time, however, his words were having no visible effect. Not a single